So, it has been a while since I think it's actually not been that long since we've done a tier list video, but yeah, it has been a whole ass year since I've done a Nickelodeon tier list video, and yeah, a lot of stuff has happened since that video. I've made that video saying that I don't really like Nickelodeon very much anymore. I mainly only really liked the early 2000s stuff. I've since then finally watched certain shows that were on that tier list that I've only had kind of minor experiences, well, maybe not even minor, just kind of vague history with that I've now fully watched. Well, maybe not fully watched, and I mean, you could probably guess what show I'm talking about, but yeah, basically, to put it in more blunt terms, I'm not a big Nickelodeon fan like I once was. Maybe not even a huge fan in nowadays anyway, but I figured if you're curious how I currently stand on the whole Nickelodeon tier list thing when it comes to the shows and how I'd rank them, it is time to do the kind of finalized, I guess you'd say, version of this. Now, I mean finalized as in this is probably going to be the last Nickelodeon tier list video I'm going to be making for a good long while. I mean, I think this has actually gone through three changes. There's the first video I made on tier list myself. I showed my re-ranked version of it, and I think it was in a video called my re-ranked tier list. I think that's what the video title was. And now here we are making a revamped version for 2022. So yeah, anyways, let's just get to the tier list itself. Enough of this fucking black image shit. Anyways, this is how I ranked the shows on this tier list now. Now, there are some shows here that maybe I'm not the biggest into, but I've decided to either graduate to a higher tier, or some shows that I've kind of come to a realization that I'm not really even a big fan of and bump them down, but overall, it's a bit different compared to what the original version was. For one, I didn't really bother even renaming the letter tiers. Well, there is a special tier that I added on this tier list. I mean, you could probably see it in plain sight, but we'll go up into down with each one. Again, just kind of like a worst to best or best to worst scenario. Excuse me, I kind of misspoke there, but yeah, so we'll just go by it in each tier, and I'll try to briefly, well, maybe kind of briefly, but also give give my reasons for why each show is in the category that they are. So, in the S tier placement, we have Avatar: The Last Airbender, Invader Zim, and Spongebob Squarepants. So, again, it's a left to right thing, so, yeah, the one at the farther left is my favorite, and then to the farther right is my least favorite in the tiers, but yeah, so the reason why Avatar has officially bumped up, I think I had it in like I guess you'd say the A tier placement in the original version of this list, is because, okay, I'm just gonna be completely honest at that point, I don't think I really even, I mean, I had seen Avatar up to that point, although I didn't really, okay, I watched a lot of it when I was a kid on Nicktoons and stuff like that, although I didn't really have a more well-formed opinion on Avatar. Now that I've watched pretty much all of season 1, 2, and I'm currently about halfway through season 3, yeah, I can easily tell why this show is regarded as a classic, and it is the best Nickelodeon cartoon in my opinion. It's also might be just the best action cartoon, which I think says a lot, because I think you guys know how much I fucking love action cartoons, but yeah, there is a lot of shit about Avatar that just works so well. I mean, all the characters are very high energy and just very fun. They have likable personalities. Most of them are really developed really well throughout the show. There is a lot of stuff in there that I'd say this is one of those. It has something for everyone, but does it very well. I kind of misspoke there again. I apologize. Not perfect at English, but yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Avatar that's just great. The action scenes, characters, the development, the themes, it's very thematically strong. The episode structure and just the episodes themselves are a joy to watch. there's just a lot of shit in Avatar that's just so freaking good. And yeah, while it may be one of the shorter shows on this tier list, it only had 3 seasons. It was a damn amazing 3 seasons. And again, this is probably my favorite cartoon or just favorite show of all time in general, up there with Fullmetal Alchemist. But yeah, the next show we're going to be talking about was the show that was originally at the #1 placement in the original list, and then kind of got bumped down a little bit. If you're, well, I mean, you guys know what show I'm talking about. It's Invader Zim. So, why did Invader Zim go down a little bit in terms of its placement? Well, I mean, it's still an S tier, as you can tell. Like, I don't think it's going to be leaving S tier anytime soon, but why exactly do I have it placed below Avatar? Well, when it comes to the characters, again, like, Invader Zim, it's, again, got a very charming cast of characters, and a lot of really just entertaining, quotable, memorable, likable characters. The jokes are really funny, and while I'm usually not the hugest fan of, quote, random humor, I think characters like Gur are pretty fucking funny. The episodes, again, are a very good joy to watch, and unfortunately there's only about, like, less than 30, which sucks, because Invader Zim is an awesome-ass show, and I think it should have had one more season, and they should have finished season 2, but again, Nickelodeon kind of fucked it in the butt there, but again, just Invader Zim has a lot of stuff that I like, although the main thing that kind of puts it below Avatar, in my opinion, is while the characters are very entertaining, I think some of them could have had a little bit more character development. Now, I know Invader Zim isn't some, like, super fucking story-focused show where, like, each season has its own storyline and shit, but still, I think there could have been some more development. Like, particularly for Zim, I think the way that he could have developed better is, I think at some point he probably should have caught on and have had the realization that the almighty Tallest don't really care about him, and he has a sudden realization on why they sent him to this planet, and maybe he could have had some type of redemption arc. I guess you could say, well, maybe kind of stretch the redemption arc part, but basically, I just think while there could have been a little bit more character development here or there, I still think Invader Zim is an awesome cartoon and an awesome show in general. And the next show we have, and the last show in the S tier, is Spongebob Squarepants. Now, I know you may be questioning, why is SpongeBob in S tier when I've stated multiple times before that there are certain seasons that I dislike and maybe even straight up hate? Well, okay, maybe not hate anymore, but okay, while SpongeBob, it does have some really fucking bad episodes and, again, some really bad seasons. The thing is, the good in SpongeBob much, much outweighs the bad. I mean, the characters, again, for the most part, in at least the earlier seasons and some of the modern ones, are very likable. The jokes are very funny. I mean, the show is super fucking quotable. There's, again, just a lot of stuff about SpongeBob that, again, works so well. And something that I think all 3 of the shows in the S tier do very well is, even though they have kids in mind, they don't treat their audience like they're a bunch of just mindless brats and shit. Like, SpongeBob is a very well-written show, and one thing that SpongeBob does pretty well that's pretty surprising is it can actually touch on some really real and just really dark themes in general. I mean, again, for a show that's branded as just mindless shit that can rot kids' brains, they actually touch on some really touching, well, maybe, I don't know if I'd say touching, but they did touch on some pretty fucking dark realities of life, and I think that's pretty epic, I guess you'd say. Well, maybe not epic, well, okay, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying anymore, but yeah, again, bottom line, I think, okay, I'm sorry, I accidentally got a call, but again, bottom line, SpongeBob is one of the best shows on Nickelodeon, but not as good as the top 2, in my opinion, but still, SpongeBob, classic Nicktoon. And now on to the A tier, which has more of the shows from Nickelodeon that I still really enjoy from this network, and there have been some that have actually upgraded to a higher placement. Again, I think you could probably, if you compare the original version of this list to the new version, I think you can tell what they are, but again, let's just go by each show on the tier, and then we'll talk about them. So, the shows in A tier are Danny Phantom, Hey Arnold, The Adventures of Neutron Boy Genius, The Fairly Oddparents, My Life as a Teenage Robot, TMNT, 2012, and The Legend of Korra. That's a lot of shows, but, Yeah, but let's just go by each one, and I'll explain why they're there. So, Danny Phantom is, in my opinion, at least my favorite show in the A tier. Now, Danny Phantom is not a perfect show, let me just say that right now, and there is some stuff that I think could have been done better, and kind of in a similar way to Invader Zim. I think there could have been some characters that probably could have been developed a little bit better, and I think overall Season 3, while I'm one of the few people that'll kind of stick my neck out for it, and I don't think Season 3 is necessarily bad, but it is weaker than Seasons 1 and 2, although with what issues it does have, it does, again, make up for with a lot of great aspects. I mean, most of the characters anyway are very three-dimensional, again, likable. Most of them go through well enough development. The storylines are usually pretty entertaining. Its humor is mostly pretty good. The action scenes, again, this is an action show after all. It's another show that I think does the action scenes very well, and again, it's kind of hard to go super in-depth, but there's a lot of great episodes in Danny Phantom. My personal favorites and my personal favorite season would probably have to be Season 2. And the episodes from Season 2, like, all of my favorites are from that one. My top 3 are probably, my favorite would probably have to be The Ultimate Enemy. I think it had a very powerful message and was just a really fucking dark episode, and again, I just thought it was very well written. Reality Trip is probably one of the most entertaining episodes of the show. Rainstorm, same thing, it's probably one of the most epic ones. And the other seasons have great episodes as well. Season 3 had a couple that I really liked, like a Frightmare and Urban Jungle. And again, I just really like Danny Phantom. It probably also has one of the best theme songs of all the shows on this tier list. But yeah, Danny Phantom, in my opinion, are great and honestly kind of underrated 2000s Nick cartoon. But yeah, the next show we're going to be talking about is Hey Arnold, which is, has a distinct distinction, or a unique distinction of being one of the few 90s Nickelodeon shows that I actually like. But, yeah, I think Hey Arnold, while I'm not necessarily the biggest fucking slice of life whore, I guess you'd say, like, I'm not really a slut for those types of shows. I mean, when in the right hands, they're done really well, although, I don't know, I guess I just prefer the more fantasy centered shows, I guess you'd say, if that's a decent way of putting it. But Hey Arnold is by far one of the best slice of life shows. Again, it's kind of hard to describe Hey Arnold without trying to repeat myself, but again, very great characters. It touches on, I think it has very good life lessons that actually have a lot of meaning to them. Again, characters are great. The episodes are usually very good to watch. They're very entertaining and just structured very well. Storylines are good. Again, the characters go through the right amount of character development, I feel, and some of these episodes can be really fucking touching, like Arnold's Christmas. That's by far one of the best episodes of the show, and it's one of the few longer-running Nickelodeon shows that, in my opinion, stayed great throughout. Like, Season 1 is great, Season 2 is great, 3 is great, 4 is great, 5 is great. Again, it kind of disappeared out of nowhere, but all 5 seasons are a very good watch, if you ask me. And again, it's one of the few 90s niche shows, again, that not only do I just think is a good show, but one that I actually like watching as well. So, again, props to Hey Arnold. So, the next show we're going to be talking about, this is one of the shows that graduated or downgraded from the S tier, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron. So, you may be asking, Malachi, why did Jimmy Neutron go from S to A? Well, now I've talked about Season 1 multiple times before, and I hate ragging on it every time I bring it up, but again, like, the people who throw away Jimmy Neutron and say it's just one of the most formulaic shows of all time, and each episode is the exact same, and they're all structured the exact same. Those people, they have only watched Season 1. Like, I guarantee that they've only watched episodes, like, maybe like 2 or 3 episodes from Season 1 were like, oh, well, the whole show must be like this, when it's not. Season 2 and 3 of Jimmy Neutron, again, have a lot of the same positives that the shows I talked about before have. The characters are very likable. Well, I mean, the characters were likable to begin with, most of them anyway, but again, just Season 2, it just builds on them more. They go through a lot more character development, and I think what also really made Season 2 and 3 of Jimmy Neutron stand out is just most of the episodes are usually double or triple or even quadruple length, and I think when Jimmy Neutron episodes have that usually that type of length, it really fits the show more. Like, when it did just 11-minute half segment episodes, I guess you could say, I don't really think Jimmy Neutron has really said it. It is really, that doesn't really fit Jimmy Neutron well, and I don't think it's usually done that well, and it's definitely not as well done as something like SpongeBob, but the episodes that are double length, though, not only do they usually have the better storylines, and again, like, these episodes also just give more room for the characters to develop, and Season 2 and 3, when it comes to the episode stream, most of them are really freaking good. Like, Season 2 has the Win, Lose, and Kaboom special, which might just be one of my favorite episodes of Jimmy Neutron, and there's the End Men from Season 3, there's Crouch and Jimmy Hidden Sheen, which is one of my personal favorites, Stranded is a great one. I think the only episode of Jimmy Neutron that I would just straight out say I hate, or, yeah, I think the good term to say just hate is, I think I probably have to say again, Carl Weezer, Boy Genius. Again, I know I knock on that episode all the time when I talk about Jimmy Neutron, but can you really blame me? It's like one of the few episodes where I just say Carl Weezer, who's usually one of my favorite characters on the show. It's just a real dickhead, and there's not even really any big justification for it, and they don't even punish him at all for how he treated freaking Jimmy, and it's just, again, that episode is a skip every single time it fucking comes up, but most other episodes are good, and crap, Season 1 doesn't even have any episodes I just find bad. It's just the one that has the least redeeming or good qualities. But again, if you're gonna watch Jimmy Neutron, I recommend Season 2 and 3 and a couple from 1. But yeah, the next show we're gonna be talking about is Fairly Oddparents, and yeah, now while this may be in a similar boat to SpongeBob in the same way that I say that there's a couple seasons and definitely some episodes that I think are pretty shitty, most of Fairly Oddparents, again, I think is great, and crap, I think I'd actually say it actually was more consistent than SpongeBob, because pretty much every season up to Season 8 was mostly good. Well, okay, here's how I structure them. Seasons 1 through 5 are by far the best seasons of Fairly Oddparents. I mean, these are where the characters are at their most likable, the humor is at its best, most of the episodes are at their best, and again, there's just a lot of great stuff that Fairly Oddparents does, and again, it has that same thing with SpongeBob, where they can actually touch on some really real and dark shit, which is, again, I always appreciate, and again, just the episodes of Fairly Oddparents are freaking good. Like, my favorite would have to be Channel Chasers, that's probably the best episode of the show. Seasons 6 through 8, I would describe these as the Silver Era, kind of like how most people would describe SpongeBob Seasons 4 and 5. Like, the episodes of Seasons 6 through 8 are mostly good, although these are the seasons where I think they start having some more bad episodes, and yeah, again, just, there's a couple in Season 6 through 8 that are weak, but mostly they're mostly good, even if the writing isn't as good as in 1 through 5. 9 to 10, though, I don't really even think I need to go into those. Like, I've already shit on those seasons enough at this point, so I'm going to spare you repetition. But, yeah, Fairly Oddparents, again, for the most part, is great, and I think it deserves the A tier placement. And now on to the last show that I would say I really do enjoy and just think is good. My Life as a Teenage Robot. I think a simple way of putting My Life as a Teenage Robot, it's basically if the Powerpuff Girls, the original show, were on Nickelodeon. I think that's a good way of putting it. And again, just like Powerpuff Girls, it's also really good. The characters are mostly very well developed and entertaining. Jenny herself is one of my favorite Nickelodeon protagonists. The action is, again, good in it. The humor is mostly pretty funny. And again, I think this might just be one of the most underrated Nickelodeon shows, because I swear it doesn't get as much praise and attention as I think it deserves. And again, all 3 seasons are mostly really good. Again, I don't have as much to say about My Life as a Teenage Robot as I did the shows before, but again, good show. Now on to the 2 shows that actually graduated up a tier. Now, I still have yet to get these. Like, I do actually plan on getting these 2 shows at some point, but for now, I don't have a whole lot to say about them. But the first show that graduated is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012. Yeah, one of the best Ninja Turtles shows as well, and one of the few 2010s Ninja shows that I'd say I actually mostly really enjoyed. The characters, again, great. Overall tone of the show, great. Humor, great. it's just a good Ninja Turtles incarnation, and probably my second favorite, right behind the '03 show. But yeah, not much to say about it. It's just good. Then we have Legend of Korra. Now I don't know exactly what my reason for having the Legend of Korra in a C tier was in the original version, but I think Legend of Korra is actually a pretty good sequel series to Avatar. Now again, as you tell by its placement on the tier list, I don't think it's as good as Avatar, like not even fucking close, but it's mostly good again. Characters mostly well developed, storylines usually good, fight scenes, action scenes usually good, stories usually good, but I think it's one of those shows that actually gets better as it goes on, because I think as I watched Korra, it did get better from what I remember of it, but yeah, Legend of Korra, mostly good. And yeah, now on to the shows below A tier. We have B tier, which this is basically the last tier where I say I actually mostly liked the shows in question. And yeah, I'm just gonna be honest, I significantly have less to say about the B tier than the A and S tier. So yeah, let's just get on the list in the shows. So the shows in B tier are The Penguins of Madagascar, El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Rivera, Harvey Beats, Rocket Power, Rugrats, and Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness. Okay, I tried to get all these done in a rapid fire round, but yeah, this is basically the tier of shows where I'll admit they're good, well, most of them anyway, and I do kind of like these shows to an extent, but again, you won't catch, okay, as in usual B tier fashion, I'm not as big on these shows, obviously, as the higher ones. Penguins of Madagascar, I think this is one of the few that it hasn't graduated, but yeah, I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, although I think when it comes to the action shows on Nick, I think there are some that are better. El Tigre, it's kind of one of those shows where I don't really feel like you had much room to pick up from. I mean, this show only lasts for like one season, and it kind of just got boned by the network, but I don't know, there's something about El Tigre that I do like, but at the same time, it's not light love, I guess you'd say. But again, it does have some uniqueness, I guess, compared to other action cartoons, so I guess it has that. But again, I just think there are other, again, shows on this network, and especially in the genre that it's in, that I think are much better. And then we have Harvey Beats, which I think this is one that I don't even think was in a tier before, but when it comes to Harvey Beats, it's one of those shows where, okay, I'll give it credit for being one of the better 2010s Nick shows, and I think it does have its own charm, although I don't know, it's just the shows that are kind of in this type of style and genre that I'm really not that big on. I mean, I think the guy who also made Chowder, and that's another show that I'm kind of just on, but again, like Harvey Beats, I'll give some credit to it. Then we have Rocket Power, which, yeah, I don't quite know what to say about Rocket Power. It's probably one of the, I don't even know why I have it in B tier, to be honest. I don't even really think the show's that great, but I don't know. I guess there is some part of it that's entertaining, but again, just not a whole lot to say. Then we have Rugrats, which is, okay, I know it's, I swear I had a huge feeling of just putting this in the 90s classics tier, but I don't know. I think Rugrats has a bit more merit than the shows in that tier, so I guess it gets a spot above. And then Kung Fu Panda, Legends of Awesomeness, really have nothing else to say, just it's decent. But yeah, now time to rail on some shows in the tier below it. So yeah, I know you guys probably saw this already, and I bet some of you are probably angry at me for making this and the shows in it, and putting the shows in it. But yeah, we have the 90s classics tier with 90s classics in quotation marks, which, I mean, I'm sure you know how sarcastic I'm being about that. But yeah, the shows in here are Ren and Stimpy, Rocco's Modern Life, Doug, and Cat Dog. So why do I not like these shows very much, or why did I even make this a tier? Well, simple. These are shows that are commonly regarded as some of the classic Nickelodeon shows, some of which are some of the first ones that aired on Nickelodeon to begin with, are usually held in high regard by most fans of just not only Nickelodeon but cartoons in general, and they're also ones that I think have aged like fucking milk. Yeah, some of these I really don't get why they're regarded in such high regard, and Yeah, I'll just go by each one by one. Well, I don't have a whole lot to say about all of them, but again, some of these I think I give a decent reason for why I don't enjoy it as much. So, Ren and Stimpy. The reason why I don't like Ren and Stimpy anymore, like, crap, at one point I actually enjoyed this show, but it fell off my fucking radar so freaking quickly, and if you're asking why, okay, I don't really usually talk about what I consider gross out shows very much, but I'm not inherently against gross out. Like, I think if it's done in at least moderation, and if there's actually a point to it, I guess you'd say, or if the show has just more than gross out to back up its quality, I guess you'd say, I don't mind these shows. But usually, and in the case of Ren and Stimpy, I think that's basically Ren and Stimpy's whole identity. It's one of those. Okay, now I know people usually use the term pushing the boundaries in a more positive light. However, I think that's all Ren and Stimpy has going for it. Just, it was unique compared to what was usually on television at the time, kind of. It pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable on TV back then, but other than that, I don't really think there's a whole lot that's really honestly that good about Ren and Stimpy. I mean, the characters, wasn't really engaged in them. The humor, just really not really that great in my opinion. Again, I think it's Ren and Stimpy, the way I would describe it, it's more so a product of its time rather than a timeless classic. I think that's a good way of putting it. Anyways, the next show we have is Rocco's Modern Life, which I guess I kind of have to put in the same boat as Ren and Stimpy. Well, maybe it's not quite in the exact genre, but I just don't find Rocco's Modern Life to be all that's funny. That's just how I'd put it. Again, I don't have... Okay, I'll admit, some of these shows I can't really give a whole detailed explanation on them. It's just... Again, Rocco, I just don't really have that much of an interest in it. And the next show we have is Dud, which I again, like I've said with fucking Fairly Oddparents seasons 9 and 10, you know what I think of Dud, you know how I feel about Dud. So if I just talked about why I'm not a fan of Dud and why I don't like it, why I think it's overrated in this video, it would just be me beating a dead horse at this point. Basically, to simply put it, it's the poor man's Hey Arnold. I think that's a good way of putting it. Then we have Cat Dog, which is, I just don't really have much to say. I just don't think it's really all that amazing. And now we have the C tier, which, yeah, not a whole lot to say about the shows in this one either. The shows we have here are Back at the Barnyard, Mighty B, Monsters vs. Aliens, Robot and Monster, and The Loud House. So, I think the only two that I have any real input to say on in this tier are Back at the Barnyard and The Loud House. So, Back at the Barnyard... Okay, I'm just gonna be honest, I think the show is actually pretty overhated. Yeah, I don't think the show is really that bad. Now, I know particularly Bob the Seether fan, he put this in the D tier, and I think he even decided it was trash, but I don't really see what's that bad about it. I mean, again, it's in the C tier, so obviously that means I don't really enjoy it that much, but I mean, while the storylines definitely use some work, and I think the characters, again, aren't really the greatest out there, but I mean, there were some jokes in this show that I thought were pretty funny. I mean, there's the whole viewer mail time segment, which, I mean, that was pretty clever. And I mean, there is some other stuff about this show that I think to be good. Like, I think the show is good in spurts, but it's not consistently good. So, I mean, it can't quite graduate to B tier, but again, it's really not that bad. Mighty B, I just... Like, what is there really that's that memorable about the show? I mean, again, I know I talk about how memorability doesn't equal quality, but I don't even really remember Mighty B being that great to begin with, and I mean, I don't really obviously find that much interest in it either, so, I mean, there's that, Monsters vs. Aliens, Robot and Monster, don't have anything to say about the shows at all, they're just really forgettable. Loud House, I think I made my opinion known on The Loud House. I don't think it's horrible, but at the same time, there's not really, like, I don't really see what people saw in the older seasons. I mean, I think it was better in the older seasons, but it just lost any charm that it had as it went on. And even then, the charm, it wasn't really that charming, in my opinion, at least. So, yeah, now we have the D tier, which, yeah, this is actually the show that has the tier that has the most amount of shows in here. Yeah, the shows in here are Tough Puppy, Tact and the Power of Juju, Pidgeot, Banana Cricket, All Grown Up, Fanboy and Chum Chum, Sanjay and Fred, Breadwinners, and Planet Sheen. So, I think I can pretty accurately describe most of the shows in here. Tough Puppy, yeah, I think this is just... Again, I think the last even remotely good show that Butch Hartman ever made was Danny Phantom, and that was in '04, and Tough Puppy, I just really don't think the show is really all that good. The humor-wise, it's not great. Character-wise, not great. Again, just not a great show. Tired of the Power of Juju. The games are pretty great. Show, completely opposite. Picked Up Banana Cricket, again, one of those shows that I feel like its whole identity is just centered on how much gross out it has. All Grown Up, I mean, I'm not even a big fan of Rugrats, but even I can say that All Grown Up is just legitimately boring. I mean, most of the characters were very flanderized. The show really just... Its humor was just really dry. It just was not good. Fanboy and Chum Chum, same thing as fucking Picked Up Banana Cricket. Sanjay and Craig, okay, now, I know James Borland has this as in his top 10 Nicktoons, and, I mean, he can like it all he wants, but for me personally, I just really don't think it's all that great. Now, again, it's not an F tier, actually, none of the shows in here are F tier, or none of the shows on this tier list are even F tier, but, again, the characters, again, just, I really don't feel all that engaged with them, the humor, just... I mean, I could just fucking throw out the humor. It's really not that funny. I know he says the gross out adds more atmosphere to it, but it's an atmosphere that I really do not enjoy. Again, just Sanjay and Craig, just not great. Breadwinners, same thing. It's just... This might just be the worst show on this fucking tier list, I'm just gonna be honest. And Planet Sheen kind of shits on Neutron's Legacy. I think that's an interesting, a simple way of putting it, but... Again, sorry that I didn't have a whole lot to say about the shows in B tier and the shows below it. It's just... Again, I think you can tell by my explanations of the shows lower on the list that... Again, I fell off Nickelodeon a lot in recent times, and... Again, it's not even that I hate the network. Like, I think when it comes to overall the network itself... It has more shows that I enjoy than other networks. I mean, there's more shows that I got out of here really enjoying... than stuff like freaking Disney Channel, I guess you could say. Well, I mean, there are shows that I enjoy from Disney Channel, obviously, but there are more shows from Nickelodeon that stuck to me pretty well. I mean, Avatar, Invader Zim, Spongebob, Danny Phantom, Hey Arnold, Jimmy Neutron, Fairly OddParents, and My Life as a Teenage Robot. All these shows, not only do I just really like watching them, but I think they're all genuinely of high quality as well. And, I mean, TMNT and Legend of Korra, those shows are good. Penguins, that's a good one. LT Dre, Harvey Beats, those shows are pretty good too, and, I mean, crap, even some of the shows that are in the lower tiers, I mean, they're not completely irredeemable. They have some redeeming aspects of them, but again, it's just, I think Nickelodeon truly hit its peak at around, like, fucking '05 or '06, and again, I know I always talk about how much I like Cartoon Network more, but the reason why I like Cartoon Network more is just, it had more consistently good shows throughout all the decades. I mean, I'm not huge into all of the 90s Cartoon Network shows, but I mean, 2000s Cartoon Network, that had a lot of fucking bangers in it. 2010s Cartoon Network, it had, again, a lot of great shows, but Nickelodeon, I'm just kind of mixed on it, in all honesty, and mixed in a good way and a bad way, but again, I don't know what to say at this point. Just, if you like Nickelodeon a whole lot, and if it's like one of your favorite freaking network, I can understand and I respect your opinion, but I mean, while I used to think that back in the day, my opinions on most Nickelodeon shows have kind of gone either down the drain or have just, like, the interest that I had in it at one point just completely left the chat, I guess you could say. But again, like, as you can tell, I really like the shows in the higher tiers, don't get me wrong. Just, if it's not, it's a very top-heavy network, I guess you'd say, where it's only really the shows that I really like that I have a big interest in, and the shows that kind of fall below great, I just don't really, again, just... Okay, bottom line, just, I don't really like Nickelodeon a whole lot as I used to, and this is probably going to be the last real general Nickelodeon-centered video you're going to see on my channel, but, yeah, anyways, I think that's going to do it for this tier list video. It went on for a long-ass time. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys in the next one.